Somebody tells you about a business they're starting. The first version is vague. Good margins, growing market, strong team. You nod. You don't really believe it. Then they tell you again, with detail. The supplier's name, the lease terms, the month the second location opens, what went wrong at the last place and how they fixed it. And now you believe it. Nothing was proven between those two versions. Nothing got checked. The story just became more specific, and specific stories feel true. Before the history, a quick test, 30 seconds, and it works on almost everybody. Here is a description of a woman. Read it properly, because the whole video turns on it. Linda is 31, single, outspoken, and very bright. She studied philosophy. At university, she cared about discrimination and social justice. She went on anti-nuclear marches. So, which is more likely? 1. Linda is a bank teller. 2. Linda is a bank teller and active in the feminist movement. Pick one before you carry on. Most people pick the second. In the original study, around 85% of them did. The second one cannot be more likely. Not usually. Never. Every feminist bank teller is already a bank teller. The second group sits entirely inside the first. Adding a detail can only shrink the odds. It can never grow them. That isn't an opinion about Linda. It is what the word "and" does to probability. Tversky and Kahneman ran this in 1983. They called it the conjunction fallacy. Their explanation was blunt. You are not calculating anything. You are checking how well the story matches a picture in your head and answering that question instead. Bank teller doesn't match. Feminist bank teller matches beautifully. Better fit, stronger feeling. The odds, meanwhile, move the other way, and there is nothing about that you can feel. I got it wrong the first time. I had already read the paper. Made no difference at all. Hold on to that, because 160 years before that paper, a Scotsman turned it into a business. 1820. A man turns up in London calling himself the Cazique of Poitiers. Gregor MacGregor. Not a drifter, not some chancer off the docks. He had fought in South America, under Bolivar. He rose to general of division. Bolivar decorated him in person. He married the man's niece. So he did not arrive in London empty-handed. He arrived with a record people could look up. What he described was a country called Poitiers, Mosquito Coast, roughly where Honduras meets Nicaragua now. He ran it. There was a land grant from the local king, signed and real. Now he wanted settlers. Now watch what he actually does. He does not sell a country. He sells particulars. Poitiers had a capital city with boulevards, a cathedral and an opera house, a parliament with 3 chambers, rivers running over sands of gold, soil so good that crops came up with barely any work. It had a flag, a green cross. It had an order of chivalry, the Knights of the Green Cross, who rode beside the Cazique on state occasions. It had a national bank, and he had its dollar notes printed in Edinburgh by the firm that printed for the Bank of Scotland. He sent formal letters of credence to King George, sovereign to sovereign, and appointed a chargé d'affaires to the court of St. James's. And he had a book, a full guidebook to Poitiers, written by one Captain Thomas Strangeways, aide-de-camp to His Highness. Soil surveys, climate notes, what to pack, prices. The captain did not exist either. Offices opened in London and Edinburgh, selling land over the counter, 2 and 3 pence an acre at first. Demand held, so he put it up to 4. Hired singers stood on the pavements performing ballads about Poitiers. Any one of those things, on its own, invites a question. All of them together stop the questions completely. That is the Linda problem, running at industrial scale. Every extra detail made the whole thing less probable and more convincing at the same moment. The 10th of September, 1822. The first ship left London. The Honduras packet. 70 settlers aboard. Farmers who had sold their crofts. Tradesmen who had shuttered their shops. 2 doctors. A city banker who was to run the Bank of Poitiers. An Edinburgh cobbler who had accepted the post of official shoemaker to the princess. Before boarding, plenty of them swapped their coin for Poitiers notes, local currency, ready for the landing. A second ship left Leith that January, the Kennersley Castle, with almost 200 more. They arrived dressed for landing, watching the coast for the towers of the capital. What was there was swamp, jungle, and nobody at all. They assumed they had been put ashore in the wrong place. Some of the men went inland to find the city. A few weeks in, the captain of the first ship weighed anchor in a storm and sailed off without telling anyone. The second ship went too. They were on a beach with their furniture and no way off it. The rainy season arrived. Malaria came with it. Then yellow fever. In May, a schooner came past by chance, carrying the chief magistrate of Belize. He told them there was no such place as Poitiers. He had never heard of any cazique. Of the 250 who sailed on those 2 ships, at least 180 died. Fewer than 50 ever got home. 7 ships in all had been fitted out. When the news reached London, the Royal Navy went after the ones still at sea. Here's the part that gets me every time I read it. The loan had already gone through. October 1822. Before a single settler had sighted that coast, a London bank underwrote £200,000 of Poitiers government bonds, secured on the revenues of the government of Poitiers, 6%. The house was Sir John Paring, Shaw, Barber and Company. Paring was a former Lord Mayor of London, the exact kind of name that is supposed to be the safeguard. He did not spot it. Nobody did. There was too much detail to argue with. The survivors reached home in October 1823, and the newspapers took him apart. He had already left for Paris, and he ran the whole thing again there, in French. In 1825, he got another London house to arrange a second loan, $300,000 this time, secured on the revenues of gold mines that did not exist either. Paris jailed him that December and tried him for fraud. The court let him go. Not enough evidence that he had meant it. In 1839, he returned to Venezuela, applied for citizenship, and asked for his old rank back. They gave it to him. General of Division, with a pension. He died in Caracas in December 1845, aged 58. He was buried in the cathedral with full military honors, the president and his ministers at the funeral. So what do you do with this? The instinct is to feel a little superior to them. Different century, worse information, no way to check anything. That is the comfortable reading, and it is the wrong one. They were not fooled by ignorance. They were fooled by specificity, and specificity still works exactly as well. It is in every pitch that names one customer instead of describing a market. It is in every investment story that arrives with a founder's biography attached. It is in the call that already knows your street name, and in the forecast quoted to 2 decimal places. Detail is not evidence. Detail is the thing evidence usually arrives with, which is a completely different statement. The test is small. It is also irritating. A story gets more specific. You notice yourself believing it more. Stop there. What actually got checked between the vague version and the detailed one? Usually nothing did. Somebody just added particulars. 250 people sailed for a country that had a flag, a bank, a guidebook, a capital city, and an order of knights. It had everything a country needs, except the ground. If a story like this is worth 7 minutes of your week, subscribe. One of these goes up regularly.